Hi, I'm Mark Cuschieri and welcome to the GBTA Broadcasting Studio. Joining me today is Jim Crowder, Strategic Sales Director, APAC for Enterprise Rent-A-Car and National Car Rental. Welcome, Jim. Welcome to APAC.
Thank you, Mark. I'm excited to be here. I'm excited to be here for the conference.
And like me, I believe you're a newbie to the region. My first conference and yours.
My first conference in this side of the world, yes.
Welcome. So, a couple of questions. Just what should travel managers and their colleagues be thinking about when looking at ground transportation and how it fits in within their travel policy?
So, in our perspective from the ground transportation world right now, a lot of it is with a lot of the changes in travel coming back and fully coming back globally now, there needs to be a lot more flexibility to a travel program, especially when it comes to ground transportation. With a lot of the things we've already heard this morning, with more people working from home and not fully coming back to the office or not always being back in the office, there's more changes to the business travel for ground transportation, including everybody's commute. In the past, commute wasn't really considered part of their transportation or business travel. But now, with people working from everywhere, working from home, working from anywhere, that needs to be considered in part of the travel policy. The other thing that is really important now that we are even more global is that if you have a supplier that is a preferred supplier, is that a global partnership? Or is it just and is it communicated to everyone across the globe? Or are certain regions of the world left out?
So it sort of creates different challenges now, right? You talk about people working from home. It's so diverse, right? So that must create a lot of challenges from a ground transport perspective, I suppose.
It does. There needs to be more flexibility for allowing people to make decisions when they're making their ground transportation decisions. And one of the things that's really important these days, I say old days, but years ago,
yeah.
you were able to book your car rental or your ground transportation at the last minute. That can't be the world anymore because the supply chains, the cost of vehicles, if you book last minute, there might not be availability. And that's not just a North American or European thing, it's becoming a global challenge. So the days of booking your air and hotel, and then right before you go on your trip booking car, that's no longer going to work. We already saw that in North America and Europe, and we're starting to see that really in the rest of the world right now too. So being proactive and then also allowing that flexibility in your travel policy and focusing your travel policy on the experience for the traveler. That's an important part of ground transportation, just like it is air and hotel.
Yeah, so I can imagine. So really, as travel buyers, you've got to be adaptable with the market and different markets, right?
Yes.
As well. So it's not about looking at the past, because it is very different, and certainly, like you said, the challenges on availability. So those last minute things, I suppose as travel buyers, you've got to communicate very early, being closer, connected to your travelers as well, making sure people are really not underestimating. You need to book early.
Yep, yes, it's an important part of it.
Okay, so Jim, when looking at global travel programs, how much focus is on Asia Pacific in comparison to outside of the region? So you mentioned global as well previously.
Yeah, so that's a good question. And me being new to the Asia Pacific market, what I'm learning is that a lot of global partnerships, global programs, when people talk about global, they really are implementing North America and Europe. They leave out Latin America and Asia Pacific, right? And then that leads to different decision makers, different contracts. The global part of it isn't actually implemented in a region like Asia Pacific, right? So what that does is you're not leveraging your true spend globally, and you're not implementing that program in the rest of the world. The other thing that needs to be included in that, and what I'm seeing is that Asia Pacific, the rest of the world sees Asia Pacific as a challenging ground transportation community or area, right? You're flying to a particular country and you don't want to rent a car because it's hard to drive in that country, or it's hard to access other modes of transportation in that country. My personal experience coming here, my first time in two of the countries in this market, Tokyo, Japan, and Seoul, South Korea, while I was there, just riding in the back of ground transportation, I realized that I could really drive with no problem in both of those countries before I came here, my perception was there's no way I'm ever going to drive in those countries. And that's the perception in the rest of the world that really needs to be communicated better out to travelers, that you can get around in this side of the world without the challenges that is perceived in Europe and North America.
I think you make a real valid point there, Jim. How do we get past that perception, though? What is it that maybe as travel buyers that we need to do to inform our end users, inform our travelers to move past the perception? How can you support and help that?
Yeah, so it comes down to communication to the travelers and truly having that communication be global. That communication is getting out to every one of the travelers across the globe, not just to the travelers in what a lot of people think of as the two main markets, North America and Europe. And we heard today how big Asia Pacific's influence is and how much travel there is. It's the largest travel market in the world, but it tends to be left out of the communications because people think of the other two markets as the main regions for these travel. So working with a supplier that is a consultant that can help you get that message across. And like I said earlier, the perception of certain countries that you can't get around, that's a North American and European perception. Mm-hmm. So your supplier should help you communicate that there are solutions that work in those other markets, and that's through being a consultant. I think that's the biggest difference, is having your suppliers be a consultant instead of just kind of a salesperson.
Greater collaboration,
yep.
And partnership, as you say, are critical, especially as we maneuver our way into a new space of travel,
yes.
Which is so different. You can't rewind the clock. 2019, it is new, and we have to find our way. So partnerships, collaboration are absolutely key. Good point. So what trends are you seeing in respect to supply and demand? I mean, you touched on that already briefly. Since corporate travel demand has returned, we heard Suzanne talk about the numbers and the growth occurring in this region. And as a result, how should travelers be planning now? You talked about got to book in advance, right?
Yep. Yeah, so I think that's one of the biggest keys, is continuing to book in advance and pre-planning. You can't be that traveler that is waiting to the last minute anymore for ground transportation. I kind of said that already. But the other thing is from a travel buyer's perspective or a travel manager's perspective, is leveraging your global partnership so you don't have to do multiple RFPs throughout the year by different regions. Mm-hmm. If you truly have a global program, you should be able to put that together in one and not have to do multiple tenders. We all know that multiple tenders or doing tenders take a lot of work, take a lot of time. They're challenging, right? So once again, working with your suppliers as a consultant so that you can do less of those and spend less time on them is another important part of that.
Great. Well, Jim, enjoy the rest of your stay here in Singapore. Good luck. Welcome to Asia PAC as well. Best. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for joining in. I'm Cuschieri at GBTA Broadcasting Studio. Thank you.